Welcome to the Derek Diamond Experience podcast, where every week I take a look inside the world of film and television with those who have lived it and experienced it. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and thankfully I am joined this week by not one, but two guests from the film Don't Look Back, actors Jacqueline Fleming and Jeremy Holm. How are you guys?
Hey, good, man. How are you?
Fantastic. No, I was enjoyed, chatting with you guys a little bit before we started. And I had the pleasure of watching your film, Don't Look Back, a couple of weeks ago. So I'm excited to talk about it here a little bit later. But I wanted to ask both of you, because as I was mentioning with Jeremy before we started, this has been kind of a recurring thing on the show since the pandemic hit. But how has the COVID-19 ordeal affected both of you guys individually? Let's start with you, Jeremy.
Well, a lot of projects around the house have gotten done. I built a deck and some flower beds, and I remodeled a bathroom. And with my wife's help, Dawn did a great job on the tile. She's great at tile. And then, a lot of reading scripts. I was able to finish a movie. I shot for a couple days and finished a movie that we're working on in late February. And then other than that, it's just trying to, get through the day, homeschool. I have two daughters, so homeschooling them, and, a lot like everybody else, trying to stay safe until we get through this mess.
What about you, Jacqueline?
I think the same. I was like, I can only do so many workout videos. I can only take so many selfies. What am I going to do to be productive every day and not go crazy? And so during this time, I was able to, I had a coaching with young kids that I mentored, and I was able to flip that to Zoom, and I love it so much better. So actually, it'll never go back to in person. Like, I really love that interaction over Zoom, and I can do that anywhere in the world. Be able to talk to one of the kids that I mentor, and then I started. I'm a part of a bigger production company. My production company is a baby production company, but I'm a part of a bigger production company, and I got way more involved with the downtime from acting, and got some really great things that are going on. And then I put myself in film school, so I'll be directing my first proof of concept soon. And so I just been like really busy around the clock. Production-wise, it gave me an opportunity to get really close with my family and spend more time together. And that's it. Just, practicing patience and being very productive. Just really productive during this downtime.
Well, and you both bring up great points in that, a lot of people look at the negative aspects of COVID, because we've seen a lot of productions shut down. A lot of the bigger budget ones have started back. But at the same time, there have been a lot of positives that have come from it that both of you have touched on, spending more time with family, learning new things, you mentioning the virtual teaching that you had been doing, which I think that aspect will never completely go away. Like, I think we'll get to a point where we'll be able to do things in person again. But yeah. I think the virtual aspect of it, from teaching to really anything, I think will now forever be an option, because this is something that I've mentioned on this show too. What we knew as the normal from early 2020 all the way back, it's never going to go back to that way again. So I think as long as we can find that new normal and find a balance of still doing things in person, but adding that still safe virtual aspect. And like you said, spending time with family and learning patience, because before COVID, we were all moving so fast, and it was like you never had any time to sit down and appreciate anything. And now you do.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree with that 100% for sure. Yeah. I have to say though, with not running like across town or going somewhere to do things in person and now taking it on the internet or on Zoom, it allowed me to be so much more productive in so many more areas because I have more time now. Does that make sense? And I think I like it, and I don't see where it's not as effective. Of course I want the human interaction sometimes, but I'm getting a lot accomplished sitting still.
Absolutely.
And
No,
also,
absolutely.
you don't have the drive time, the travel time.
Exactly.
So all that travel time can be then used. A lot of employers are finding this too and getting rid of their offices. So you're right.
Yeah.
Some things are going to remain from this. And I think we haven't calculated all the upsides because it's so terrible right now, but there's some pretty good upsides.
Yeah, I think so. It's devastating what's happened, with COVID. But we do talk about the negative a lot. But there have been some positive that have happened in spite of this horrible tragedy that we're.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
It's very terrible.
Well, and I think us as humans, we tend to focus more on the negative aspect of things. But like you said, there have been positives from this whole thing, because we've talked about, in previous conversations I've had, it seems to be, oh, well, because of COVID, I can't do this, indefinitely, or, I had to stop doing this. I can't spend time with, my family who live out of town. But again, the virtual aspect of it, you can communicate with family that might live on the other side of the country still. You can still do things in a safe way, in this new era. So there are some positive aspects to it. And I think the slowing down and kind of reflecting have been definitely up there as far as my personal opinion goes. But kind of to go off on some more positive topics, what was it that made both of you want to get into the world of acting? Jacqueline, we'll start with you.
I don't even know if I had a thought about it. I just know when I was a little girl, I must have been about 3 years old, I saw a commercial on TV and I just wouldn't stop imitating what I saw. And I just gravitated to it. I was bit by it. I just don't even know how it happened. It's just like I was born that way. And I've experienced all aspects of acting, whether it's theater or commercials, infomercials, film, television, you name it. I've been immersed inside of it, on all those levels. And it's just something I'm drawn to. It's part of me.
Were you in theater before you started doing film?
Oh yeah, I was in theater since the age of like 7 years old. And I never wanted to do film or television. Actually, I was a theater actress all the way into my 30s. And I did a film with Halle Berry. And she said, it was my first one of my second speaking roles. And she was like, look, if you really want to be an actress, you got to go to Hollywood. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I just want to do theater. I don't want to go to Hollywood and get famous or do films or TV. And then she was like, I'm telling you, you gotta go to Hollywood. And she's the reason I moved to Hollywood. She just impressed me so much. I was like, let me go see what she's talking about. We were in Chicago and I grew up in New York and St. Louis and Chicago. And I was theater all day long. So she's the reason I moved to LA and started a film career.
That's fantastic. Do you think that the theater aspect of acting ultimately helped better prepare you for the film side of acting?
Absolutely. The discipline and the appreciation and the gratitude, for sure. I starved my entire career. I starved even when I got to LA doing films and TV. I mean, I was just a starving actress. And to come from the theater where it was a passion. It was about the craft, and you didn't make any money and you worked extremely hard and you just did it for the love of the art. That's what's always sustained me in this industry when I had no food to put on my table or barely any gas to put in my car while I was trudging around doing auditions and trying to work as an actress. The love of it, the craft, the passion.
Fantastic. What about you, Jeremy?
It's probably when I played the giant, Jack and the Giant Beanstalk in kindergarten. That's probably when it started, and then it just spiraled out of control. No stopping.
Were you a giant kid? Is that why you were cast as the giant?
No, it's probably, he says the least, and I wasn't the best reader when I was that old, so it probably just like gave me the leftover part. I had older brothers, so they knew I'd have some big shoes to wear, and I think it was really just a costuming thing that landed me that role. But I've been playing bad guys ever since, until this movie, in fact.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is that you never know. You said you play villains for most of your career. How was it transitioning from, like you said, you played villains for most of your career, and then in this current role you had in Don't Look Back? How was that transition?
Well, when you're on the inside of a character, you don't really you kind of have an unbiased self-relative view of them. So they don't think of themselves as being bad. They think of themselves as being necessary and excellent, doing their best, having their best day. So in that part of it, it's the same. I would say it's the how you spin the ball. You might switch that up a little bit. You might make slightly different vocal choices, but I'm not super aware of that part of the mechanism. It's more a subliminal thing for me, at least in that role it was. I think that cops, because I play a homicide detective in the movie, I think whether they're a good character or a bad character, cops are cops. And there's a certain way cops are. And then you can, I'm sure lots out there are like, what is he talking about? That's not true. It's true.
So would you be open to, now that you've played a protagonist character, would you be open to doing it more? Because there have been so many actors who have made a career out of, I don't want to say being typecast, but playing a villain for the majority of their career. Would you be open to do more protagonist roles, or are you more comfortable being the antagonist?
I'm more comfortable on set. So anything that gets me on set, I'll be there and I'll love, absolutely love. I think that it's easier to sell an actor if you know what they've done, and that's why those little eddies and fissures get built up into canyons. But yeah, of course, I always want to. I'm in a movie that's going around right now called Silo, and I play kind of he ends up being a good guy in that. So, there are a few of those floating around, which is nice.
I like the answer of whatever gets me on set. Because I tell people, I've worked on a couple of sets, and I tell people, if you truly love film, television, whatever the entertainment medium is in that field, nothing beats the feeling of the first day getting to set. There's nothing quite like it. And you know if it's what you want to do very quickly when you're on set, because you spend so many hours, some of them good, some of them not so good. But if you love it, you keep doing it. And there's
a lot of waiting.
Yes, the hurry up and wait mentality. That was one of the first rules I learned. Film's a lot of hurry up and wait. You'll set up something, and then you'll sit around and wait. But when it's time to go, you've got to be ready just like that.
Yep.
That's fantastic. So you mentioning, you mentioned playing the giant in elementary school, or when you were a kid. At what point did you kind of get your foot in the door as you're taking this seriously and thinking, okay, this is what I want to do? How do you get into the acting field from there?
Well, like Jacqueline, I come from the theater, so I spent all of my 20s, and I moved to New York when I was exactly 30. And so then, and I was doing regional theater, and I only then started to do some soap operas, and which is a completely different, like, that acting is different than film acting, is different than episodic acting, is different than, they all have their own part of the Venn diagram that they fit into. It's all acting, but they're different spheres of influence. So, to get into it, you just have to do it and meet people and ignore people who say no and listen to people who say yes, and keep putting tools in your toolbox. And how I did it was I just worked really hard, went to grad school, and got lucky. I mean, part of it's luck.
Yeah, it's luck. Some call it timing, whatever the case may be. But yeah, luck and timing do have quite a bit to do with it. But let's talk about the film Don't Look Back, because as I mentioned, I had a chance to watch it a couple of weeks ago. And it's funny because growing up, I loved movies growing up, but I was never a fan of the horror, suspense, thriller genre. Those movies always freaked me out as a kid, and I just could never bring myself to watch out. Have you guys ever watched the movie Leprechaun?
I think I heard of it now.
So I watched that movie when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and it petrified me. And I stayed away from that genre for years. But now that I've gotten more into learning behind the scenes, film information, and starting appreciating more genres, I've actually grown quite appreciative of the horror, suspense, thriller genre. So I was actually really looking forward to watching this. And then when I read that it was directed by the creator of Final Destination, I was excited about that too. And I'm going to stay away from spoilers as far as my overall thoughts of the movie, but you can feel that immediately when the story starts, and it keeps you guessing throughout the entire movie. And even when the twist happens, you don't really know how exactly it's going to end. And I personally thought the ending was really cool. So
that is great to hear.
No, it was. I love movies that can keep you guessing, and you think you figured it out, but then something else happens, and you're like, oh crap, I wasn't expecting that to happen. And then something else happens, you're thinking, okay, well now the movie's over. And then something else happens at the very end. So I really enjoyed watching it. It was
nice.
It was a lot of fun. I very much enjoyed it. So Jacqueline, how were you? What drew you to want to be in this film, and how did you get involved with it?
Well, my agent called me and she was like, hey, I have an audition for you. And, it's from the creator of Final Destination. And I was like, oh, I like those movies, right? And so I read the sides. I only got a few pages and I was clueless. I had no idea how to craft this character. I was like, what is he talking about in this speech? And I don't want to give anything away in the movie, but that speech was what was going to land me the job. And I really had to just try to put as many clues as I could. I begged for the script. My agent was like, no way, they're not giving out anything. And I was just like, please let my choices be right. And I think they were. But that I made for the character. But it just seems so interesting. Just so interesting. And I don't want to give anything away in the movie, but that character I got to play, I had enough to read for the audition. I was like, okay, this is going to be fun and challenging. And I can't give anything away in the movie. I don't know what to say. It was just, it drew me in. I had to be a part of it. So I was hoping I nailed it. I guess I did. I got the part.
Well, it's very much an ensemble type of cast because it's about a core group of people. And this isn't really giving anything away because, the plot's out there, but it's essentially about a group of people who witness a man literally being beaten to death, and they do nothing about it. And one of them actually films the whole incident on their phone. And the crazy thing is that happened, not beaten to death, but there was a fight at the mall in the town where I live around the holidays last year. And someone filmed it on their phone. And it was going on for a good 3 to 4 minutes before someone finally stepped in and broke it up. So I instantly thought of that moment when I read the plot of the story. I was like, I'm gonna be very intrigued by this. But Jeremy, what drew you to want to be in this film, and how did you get involved with it?
My manager was at South by Southwest and bumped into a gentleman named Andrew Vandenhouten, who's one of the producers of the movie. And we had just done The Ranger and the Block Island Sound together. And they had this role, and Jeffrey was, working on casting it, and it worked out from there. And I'm so glad I did it. When I was getting ready to do The Ranger, I watched 100 horror movies because I didn't know much about them. And so I watched 100 of them with my wife, which it was a lot of fun, weird dreams. And of course, I watched all the Final Destination movies. So I was stoked, just stoked.
Well, and those movies kind of reinvented and added like a clever layer to that genre. You think of the plot and it's actually very simple, but the way they pull it off is really intricate and complex. And I love the little, moments that happen throughout those movies. And what's, like I said, on the surface, a very simple concept, but because of the characters, it adds much more layer to the overall story. And that's something that I think, all of you guys did, because that was honestly what stood out to me, is how the characters played off of each other, which I think was very important for what the story was, because you have this ensemble group that's all from different backgrounds, completely different people, but they're brought together by this huge tragedy, and then we'll just say things unravel from there.
They do.
This isn't a spoiler, but I'll say this. You guys will get this because you were in the movie, but I loved the use of The Crow. Because The Crow was one of my favorite movies, especially now that I've gotten older and grown, have a different perspective on film. I love the movie The Crow. So anytime a movie incorporates something like that, it is awesome. I geeked out a little bit over it, so I very much enjoyed the movie. I really liked it.
Thank you. Good. Coco will be pleased, and Jeffrey will be pleased, and Andrew and everybody. Great cast. They all worked really hard, so they'll be pleased to hear that.
So good. The reviews, from people like yourself who've screened it.
For sure. So I do want to ask each of you, because I love getting little behind the scenes intel, but is there a specific story, whether it's funny, a cool moment that happened on set that might have stood out to you that you'd like to share?
I'll share one. So we filmed in Baton Rouge, and I got there, and they picked me up from the airport, and they brought me straight to Andrew, who's one of the producers, at a restaurant. And he just started ordering food, and I had to go do a costume fitting, and I had a scene the next day, and I had, and he's ordering buckets of beer and plates of oysters. And I'm like, what are you doing? We couldn't eat it all. It was crazy. I'm like, what are you doing? And it was just, I've never seen a producer do that. It was crazy.
Welcome to New Orleans.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
It is. That is a new thing. Generation New Orleans, and that's how you bring it in. Well, in New Orleans.
Yeah, but Andrew's from the upper west side of Manhattan. How does he know about that? I guess he soaked it in.
Orleans.
He just immersed himself in the culture.
He did. He fit in really well.
Yeah, he's a chameleon. Yeah, definitely.
And that's how they do there. I think for myself, the entire cast was you're working on this very dramatic, intense horror film, and the entire cast was just so light, almost comedic. So Coco, the star of the film, she would always do these little faces and voices, and then Amanda, who's also in the film, she would just be like, "You like my baby hair on fleek?" She had jokes, and Hans would he threw a fake cockroach on me one day. Like the whole cast was just, even Andrew Wozy, just everybody was just light and fun. And Will Stout and Skylar Hart, they were just cool and lighthearted. Like everybody was joking and laughing. Fakes. It was just a great cast, a great crew. It was wonderful. It was a lot of fun. We went Mardi Gras dancing one night down on Berkeley. We had like all our.
I missed out on that one.
Yeah, it was just a great crew.
They don't invite the cops with you. They leave those guys back.
I was trying to hang myself.
Knowing that it was filmed in the New Orleans area, that's not surprising, because New Orleans is one of the most unique places that I think I've ever been to in my entire life. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome, because it has such a unique culture that you can't help but kind of get yourself lost in a little bit. You know, like you mentioning the producer who bought all the beer and the oysters. That's a New Orleans thing. So he had his priorities in the right order.
Yeah.
So, as we start to wrap up here, what is one piece of advice that each of you could give to an aspiring, we'll say actor, since you guys strictly deal with acting, but if someone were to come up to you, say, "Hey, I'm an aspiring actor," what type of advice would you give them?
Do you have something, Jackie?
Oh, well, I mean, I've been working with actors a long time. I owned an acting studio and I mentor a lot of actors. And the one thing I tell them is just, you know, they just really have to be passionate about this. They have to understand what they're doing. Why are they doing that? Everyone has a different journey and a different purpose. And so at the end of the day, I think if you're clear on what your intent is and what you're trying to accomplish, and then you can just never, ever take this personal, because you have your craft, your art, you know, the work that you've put in, and then you have the politics of the industry. And none of it makes any sense. There's no rhyme or reason, and talent doesn't always win you a job. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's so political. Now that I'm on the other side producing, I look at things from a producer standpoint, even when I audition for things. So it's just, there's so many variables in this. So love it, and be in it for the right. That's it. And be patient.
Yeah. The other thing that I would add to that is something my brother told me when I was probably 16, 17. And my brother's an artist. He's a sculptor. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how to do it. And he just said, Jeremy, it's easy. Just act. And he was right. You just got to keep doing it and put in what Gladwell calls the 10,000 hours, right? You got to spend time. You've got to be around different people. You've got to learn from every situation. There's something to learn. When the subway stops, there's a lesson to be learned. When the country's shut down, there's a lesson to be learned. There's always a lesson. And even if you're in a bad situation, if you don't get the part you wanted, seeing the lesson in it is the one way you can continue to get the most juice out of life. That enough metaphors?
No, I love it. I'm a big metaphor fan, so no, that's perfect. No, it reminds me of a saying I heard a while back, that you mentioning how to keep doing things, that repetition is the mother of learning. So you keep doing it, and like you said, good or bad, there's a lesson to be learned in everything. If things work out, great. If they don't, well, you just take what you can from it and you move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Grateful and be humble and be kind to everybody. I'm telling you, because if you get out there and say you snob the person on set who's doing catering, maybe next year they're the producer. I mean, you should be kind to people anyway. But really, this business is insane. Just be humble and kind and nice and grateful. That's it. And you'll go a long way in industry.
Absolutely. And finally, is there any website or social media that you'd like to plug so the listeners can follow you?
Go ahead, Jackie.
Well, if you want to follow me on Instagram, on Instagram, it's my name. I am Jacqueline Fleming, and Jacqueline is Jaq, no C, JaqUeline, and my last name Fleming. So I am Jacqueline Fleming, and it's the same thing on Facebook and Twitter.
I'm going to go follow you, Jackie. Actually, I already do.
I'm following everything, Jeremy.
I'm going to post that one picture.
Oh, I'm about to post it too.
Jeremy S. Holm at Instagram, and Holm Jeremy on Facebook. And, I actually think get off your phone, walk around a park, listen to this podcast, walk around a park with your mask on, smell the air, smell the tree, look at the fall leaves. Do some of that. It'll be good for you.
And then pre-order Don't Look Back on iTunes.
Friday. A week from October, I don't know when you're going to air this, but October 16th.
13th. I think it goes to iTunes. You can pre-order it as early as October 13th or the 15th.
Pre-order.
One of those 2 days. And then we're at the drive-thrus across the United States. Don't look back.
Drive-through. But don't look back. Look forward into the screen.
We're waiting for them to let us know, give us the list, but wherever it is, we're going to be there. We're going to be there.
That's right.
There with the fans.
Watching Don't Look Back in a drive-thru would be awesome.
I can't wait.
And so scary.
For sure.
If it's in Vegas, I will be in Vegas. Like, if it's in New Orleans, wouldn't that be cool if it was in New Orleans?
That's a great idea. They should do that.
New York, I'm coming. It doesn't matter where it is. Chicago, I don't care. I'm going.
Well, I'll see you I hope it's in New York. I'll see you in New York.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, be sure to check out Don't Look Back, which drops October 16th. This will actually air October 15th. So as soon as you listen to this podcast, go pre-order it and watch it because it's a good movie. Guys, thank you.
Tag us.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this podcast. It was great.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you, man. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jack, for writing such a great movie and directing it. Thank you. We love you.
Thank you, puppy.
And if you want to follow the podcast on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at DDiamond Podcast. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, anywhere you can get your podcast for free. Also, thank you to my close friends, the Unicorn Wranglers, for providing the theme music for the podcast. You can check out all their music on Apple Music, Google Play, and Spotify. That's going to do it for this week's show, so enjoy the rest of your week. Have a safe and fun weekend. Thank you for tuning in to another awesome episode of the Derek Diamond Experience. I'm your host, Derek Diamond, and we'll see you guys back here next Thursday.